Now, moving on to my other hat, I am thrilled to be sharing the oversight of this second session, which is literally focusing on patients' perspectives. And it's my true honor to introduce Mr. Duncan Preece. Mr. Preece is the president of ALK Positive Canada, which is a patient-driven nonprofit organization with a lot of the same goals that we have at Lung Cancer Canada. And he has an initial background in health sciences with a specialization in clinical oncology, coming from the Royal Marsden in London. And he worked for many years in large European university hospitals, including in Switzerland. And later, to his surprise, he was diagnosed with stage 4 ALK-positive lung cancer. And as a patient advocate, he has been a true visionary. He has inspired so many of us in what he's been able to do to create this community, provide the support, and he is a living example of how personalized medicine shows that people can live so well with their cancer. And so we are so thrilled that Duncan has joined us today to share his personal story.
Good morning. Thank you, Dr. Snow, for that illustrious introduction. As you will see, I'm not a great speaker, so please take what comes from the heart and maybe not so much from the mouth. So just a few words on ALK Canada. I volunteered for about 4 years with ALK Positive in the US, which is the biggest group in the Western world. And I realized that in Canada, we didn't have anything similar. So about a year ago, I decided that that wasn't good enough, so we could maybe start our own organization. And we finally got incorporated in February of this year. Thank you. And we did what everybody should do, I think, is to apply for grants. And we did apply for a grant. We were successful for a grant, which we learned last week for patient awareness and education for $100,000 from Pfizer. So we're extremely grateful for that. So I'm going to try and work this machine here in front of me. So I was diagnosed in 2018, reasonably fit at the time, so I hadn't long retired, although I don't think I ever really have. During the whole of my career, I never missed one day or even been hospitalized. So my condition was first discovered through brain mets, rather than any thoracic involvement, which today still seems a bit of a mystery. There was a very long initial diagnosis in 2018, and then only confirmed in ALK 3 months later because we went through this biomarker testing. And at the time, it was very recent in Montreal. So I started alectinib in November 2018, and I'm still on that today. And by the way, I just avoided whole brain radiation by 2 days, for which I am ever thankful, as to my long-suffering and ever-patient oncologist, Dr. Linda Ofiara, who is not here this morning. So what is ALK positive today? Precise figures are hard to obtain because so many patients are not correctly diagnosed, and unfortunately many do not get biomarker testing. Almost exclusively in the lungs, or rarely in the breast or in the brain. An estimated 40,000 patients worldwide annually. And I would say that's probably in the Western world. So an unusual but not a rare condition. Currently incurable, though huge strides have been made in the last few years. a median OS of approximately 7 years at stage 4, which is the vast majority of patients. And the last point would be going for a cure. So there's a group in the States called Breakthrough Cancer, which is a $200 million US private initiative, privately funded initiative, which originally covered 4 cancers, pancreatic, ovarian, glioblastoma, and I can't remember the other one. And we managed to get them to take in ALK as well. So we are part of, we will get the American Association will get a part of about $20 million over 10 years. And this is done through what's called radical collaboration. So it's not competition, they have to collaborate along the line. What is the current and future ALK situation? So I've done this in a kind of spot that everybody knows about. Our greatest progress has been in terms of OS. Originally, we were looking at about 24 months. And as I said, today it's about 7 years. Having said that, I know patients who have been around for 17 years and more, but unfortunately are outliers. There are multiple TKIs available, 6 in the US, a lot less if you live in Canada. The patient is not like me, so they're younger, fitter, non-smokers, which I was, and a preponderancy to be feminine. The weaknesses that we see straight off are, as I mentioned earlier, the lack of systemic biomarker testing, and that has improved a lot, but it's still not 100%. We're not part of high-risk screening because most ALK patients are not smokers, so they don't go into low-dose CT scanning, etc. And around 85% or 90% are in fact diagnosed as stage 3 or stage 4, and very few at early stage. So what are the opportunities? Better detection through technologies such as NGS. We've done that, we've been there. A big problem in Canada is joined-up healthcare. So to get appointments is already horrendous. To get them with the same person is even more of a challenge, although in the ALK field we're probably a bit more spoiled for choice. And inevitably, AI everywhere. Now, AI is more for the generation of some of the people we saw yesterday, who I'm sure will be far more eloquent about that than I am. But I become, I was going to say a true believer, but I'm not an Elon Musk, but I think that AI is going to play a huge part in our futures. The threats are a cutback in government funding, and we already see that in Quebec, where the current provincial government is cutting back $1.5 billion just this year. The refusal of funders such as the CDA, INIS, or the provinces to fund second-line treatments, and patient payments when pharma companies do offer that. It's often 50-50, which can mean $3,000 or $4,000 a month for patients, which is clearly not sustainable for most that do not have insurance. So what do patients want? Vastly improved access to primary care, and this is maybe gone outside of the ALK field, but rapid referrals to specialists when necessary, where possible, care in the community. And that, coming from Europe, I noticed how little importance there seems to be on caring for people at home or in the community setting. So everything is institutionalized, or everything, a lot of things. And the other thing is to be treated as a human being and not a number. So for the oncologists who are here today, I would say when you see a patient, give them a hug. Just give every patient a hug, and you'll build up trust, you'll build up confidence. You might get COVID or something, but that doesn't, that's not so important. Patients need to properly understand and integrate their diagnosis. And a lot of patients will come out nodding, yeah, I've understood, thank you, doctor, everything is clear, and they've got no clue. So, or the others that go in tend to be a bit like me. I go in for a 10-minute appointment and it takes 3/4 of an hour. And so part of our mission at Positive Canada is to educate patients too, and that is not easy. So one of the possibilities is to respond to these legitimate concerns. We need a new framework, and I've looked at that here. Is the current framework that we have in need of bending? So can we just tweak it? Can we do little incremental adjustments and maybe cross our fingers and hope everything goes okay? Or do we need to break the frame completely and start over? Again, referring to Europe, in Europe we have two systems which run in parallel, which is a private system and a public system. The thing is, if you use the private system, in most cases you don't pay any more than if you use the public system. But it's a bit too long to explain here today in 15, 20 minutes, but it's giving patients a choice. So how do we envisage the future of patients and healthcare in Canada over the next generation? Are we going to leave to our children and our children's children a broken system, which is the system is broken and not the people in it? We have excellent care, but to get access to care is horrendous. And how do we manage the threats and opportunities of today and for the future? Because now in Quebec, healthcare is going to consume half the provincial government funds. So they got the other half which is left for everything else. And that is not sustainable. So the framework I used when I was at Ernst & Young Consulting, which is probably a bit too much to go over today because I don't have enough time, but it's based on, SMART is a word you've seen probably a dozen times over in different ways. But this is the successful management of alliances, resources, and technologies. So that is your pie. And we go from the overall strategy, because we all know that you have to have the strategy in place before the structure. And we have structures in place with a lot of people in place that are not going to be needed in the future. So that is part of the frame breaking, is that we have to think differently, and we have to be not afraid to break things, to make things better for the future. How do we implement that? What are the KPIs, the key performance indicators? How can we make alliances with other HCPs, other centers inside or outside of Canada, NGOs, non-governmental organizations, and civil society. How can we harness the resources that we have? Having spent part of my time in medical recruitment, it always makes me smile when I see that we forever talk about shortages of personnel, where in fact we got plenty of personnel, we just don't use them properly. And one of the things which is going to come out of AI, in the last slide, when we move through the different stages, so the AI and the fringe, which it is more or less today, where it takes center stage shortly, and then when it becomes omnipresent. So how are we going to face that? We're not ready. And we're not ready politically, we're not ready financially, and we're not ready to accept that there are going to be radical changes. I don't know how easily you can see that, but this is the drug pathway. And in Canada, from the moment that medication gets approved by Health Canada, to either it goes through the public plan or it goes through the private plan. And so you can see if it goes through the public plan, it takes over 2 years for it to go from being approved by Health Canada, and we don't know how long it takes for the approval process, which is on top of that. And if you go through the private plan, it takes 9 months. So there are a lot of steps involved in the public purse, and a lot of people employed in that, which makes you think, are we getting our money's worth? Amongst the possible solutions, call for a national drugs fund, as they have in England. So, in other words, to take the funding of cancer drugs out of the scope of the provinces and give it to the feds. The reduction or elimination of, probably a word most people don't know here, quangos, but I like the word, so I put it in. It means quasi-autonomous, non-governmental organizations, such as health boards, and we have gazillions of them in Canada. State-of-the-art local community centers, complementary to modern academic centers, and physician-led management of small centers, community-focused centers, where we don't possibly need to have a new academic center. And here in Montreal, what has come forward recently is the state of things at Hôpital Maisonneuve-Rosemont. So obviously the government says we're going to rebuild and make it better and super duper, but do we really need that, or do we need a new approach? I would say let's go for it. So thank you for listening to me this morning, in spite of my croaky voice. For all the oncologists that are here, please tell your patients about us. Tell your patients about ALK-positive Canada. We want to help them. So if you've got 2, 3, 4, 5 ALK-positive patients in your practice, please let them know, and they can get in touch with me if they want, or they can look at our website, which is, how do we put it, work in progress. Thank you. Sorry, I did have a whole list of people to thank, and my time has run out, but there they are, and they'll be on the slide. And thank you to everyone for coming along and supporting what we do here.